Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Ash.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to another race review podcast, which after our race reaction is where we take a look at the race in a little bit more detail and we look at those incidents within the race and give, now that we've had time to kind of go away and watch it either again or look at some incidents a little bit more, give more detailed thoughts on it, and obviously can take some more themes, probably talk about Bottas a little bit more in his season, and obviously how can we not talk about Lewis Hamilton today. But yeah, what we'll do as we're starting off, it's a new thing that we're kind of putting into our race review podcast, is we'll go 1 to 20. Just so if you haven't seen the race result, why not? But here it is for you now. Or if you don't want to see it, look away. Don't know why that would happen. Anyway, for number 1, we have Valtteri Bottas. Number 2 was Lewis Hamilton. 3 was Max Verstappen. 4 was Charles Leclerc. In 5 was Alexander Albon. 6 was Daniel Ricciardo. 7 was Lando Norris, beating his McLaren teammate Carlos Sainz in P8. The Renault of Nico Hülkenberg was P9. And due to a penalty after Kvyat being punished post-race, which is obviously a different 1 to 20 from what Ash gave you on Sunday, was Sergio Perez promoted back into the points. Kimi Raikkonen was P11, Daniel Kvyat with his new position in P12 with that 5-second penalty. In P13 was Lance Stroll, P14 was Antonio Giovinazzi, I don't think he's Jewish. P15 was Roman Grosjean, P16 was Pierre Gasly, who actually didn't finish the race, but because the Williams was so far behind meant that he was still classified in front of the Williams of George Russell. And then our retirees at the back were Kevin Magnussen with an exploding brakes, which with fireworks night coming up, I suppose was starting to get in the festivities of things. Yeah. Robert Kubica retired with a hydraulics issue, and obviously Sebastian Vettel, the first retiree, with that failed rear suspension. And Ash will probably now get into race review of it. What was your main thoughts of the race?
Well, it was my first line from the reaction. I think I've got to stick with it. Valtteri Bottas won the battle, but Hamilton ultimately won the war, didn't he?
I think so. And
I don't think there's really any way else you can look at it. As well as Valtteri Bottas drove, Hamilton knew what he needed to do and beat it quite comfortably, really.
Unfortunately for Bottas, it was too little too late from him, and Hamilton again has been amazingly consistent throughout the season, just always been in the point scoring positions, and for a large majority within the top 2, isn't it?
Yes. Let's think about this. Germany was outside of it. Austria was outside of it. They were both off the podium. Singapore was off the podium.
No, I think that might be it.
That's it. So was he in Japan third, wasn't he?
Yeah, Japan was third. He was still on the podium in Japan.
Or was he second in Japan? He was on the podium in Japan.
He was on the podium in Japan.
So 3 races out of, what are we on now, 19? Where he hasn't finished on the podium is quite impressive, and he's now within 5, isn't it, of Schumacher's record? We did the video.
Yes, I believe he is, correct.
You're looking at me as if we're unsure. We did the video, we should know this one.
We should.
It's 5.
Yeah, let's go 5. Comment below if we're wrong. And sometimes we get things wrong. We're all human, and we're fans. We don't claim to be experts, although we try to be as expert as we possibly can be. But yeah, I think if you look at this race, it will go down, like you said, it won't go down as a classic race, but it will go down as a race that was Mercedes dominant. Yeah. The main points in the race that happened, mainly due to the TV coverage, as per usual. I'm
going to actually defend Sky a little bit on this one.
Okay, go on then.
It was the race in which Hamilton was expected to wrap up the championship. So for them, it was what's going to get the most viewers in. Is it the midfield battle, or is it the title that everyone's talking about at this moment in time?
Oh, admittedly so, but there were times...
So that it should have, yes.
There
From a fan point of view,
yeah,
it would have been nicer to have seen the tighter battles, and that was something that I said in the video yesterday. You didn't really see any of it, despite it being there. But Sky are looking at it from casual viewers as well.
I mean, yeah, if we're honest, we are, and I presume most of you guys watching, some of you will be casual fans, are kind of F1 fans to the root, so
you want to see the racing.
We're almost abused in terms of that fact, because regardless, we might moan about the midfield not getting as much coverage as it should do, but we'll still tune into every race and watch every race, so they can probably go, it doesn't really matter, they're going to watch every race. How are we going to get new guys in? I go there, but I would counter, people love seeing close racing, and if you show some of that midfield action, I think there was probably some great midfield action between the McLarens and Renaults, which you were wanting, I think, from your preview. There were incidents like the Daniel Kvyat and Sergio Perez incident. I only saw because I went and searched it up. Ash still hasn't seen, and from watching race coverage. There was also an incident between Perez and Gasly. I still haven't been able to find any footage of that yet, so if anyone does have a link to any of the footage, please comment down below with that one. But yeah, it's just frustrating in that regard, for me personally. Max Verstappen, again, we'll go on the positives. So Mercedes and then on to Red Bull, always strong there, and then we'll talk about Ferrari. Because Red Bull and Ferrari, they'll kind of go together. We'll kind of go with that.
Yeah.
But Albon, again, he's done what a team like Red Bull, Mercedes or Ferrari do when they go to the back. Still a very impressive drive. I'm not going to try and take this away from Alex Albon. It's an impressive drive, but...
especially as he did a 3-stop, didn't he?
Incredibly. But to show how easy it is, I looked at it because I watched it through a second time this morning.
I wouldn't use the word easy.
Why?
Because it's not easy to drive a Formula 1 car.
Well, it's not easy to drive a Formula 1 car, but I mean, these guys are the 20 best drivers in the world, or at least in a very high bracket and calibre of driver. So what's easy to me and you isn't in the same relevance to what's easy to them. And there was the gap, when he pitted for that third pit stop, there was 15 seconds between him and Daniel Ricciardo in currently P5 at that time, and he made that up very quickly.
Yes, but then you can also argue the fact that he went onto the soft tyres, wasn't it, for his...
Yeah.
Yep. And Daniel Ricciardo's tyres then had the tyre wear to deal with as well.
Exactly.
So it's, on the whole, it's no different to Hamilton's pit stop in Hungary, where he then made up the time on Max Verstappen. Aging tyres against a fresh pair of softs, and everyone lauded that.
Well, yes, because Lewis Hamilton beat someone that he wasn't supposed to be, or not supposed to be. He's a direct competitor. Albon didn't beat anyone on that day.
No,
that he
I'm not
wasn't
saying that.
supposed to.
What I'm just saying is, like, in terms of the times, at the time that he had to make up, and the tyre positioning, it's very similar in that aspect.
Correct.
So, plus the fact he had damage, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, it is one of those where it was a good drive, and one thing that I do need to correct, I said yesterday that he'd finished in the top 6 every drive he'd had for Red Bull, but it's not.
Is it top 5?
It's the top 5 is what I was reading today, so...
very impressive.
And is still outscoring Max Verstappen.
Exactly. But Alexander Albon, I think he has been fantastic since he's gone to Red Bull, and I'm not trying to say that it's not a great drive. It's obviously a very good drive, and he consistently is getting the maximum performance he can, but for me it wasn't a driver of the day performance.
No, I don't think he should have got driver of the day. But he was also incredibly unlucky to actually end up at the back, because he ended up in a Leclerc-Carlos Sainz sandwich, didn't he? Which based on the pace he had and also the pace Verstappen had relative to the Ferraris, you could have been saying P4 was on the cards for him had that not happened.
Well, P4 was definitely on the cards.
So he was unfortunate to end up at the back.
But I think that was more just another incident. I saw it in Chaz's instant report as well, where it's another incident where these sausage curbs have no real relevance, because the damage came from Albon, not through any contact from Charles Leclerc or Carlos Sainz. It was because he shot off the sausage curb.
Nice little
exactly, and that's where the damage came to his car. And if they just run wide, that would have been okay, because I think when analysing it, I think Albon did understeer, kicking out a bit, and which then took him wider than he was hoping to. But yeah, just FIA, get rid of the sausage curbs. But moving on to Max Verstappen, the US Grand Prix, a race that he's notoriously strong at, had a very good race, didn't he?
Yes and no. It was a good race in the fact that he performed fantastically, but you've then got to look at it, the car performance was never really there for him. Bottas,
I don't know, he might have taken second if that yellow flag hadn't come into play.
Most definitely, I think that. But when you think of how Bottas streaked away from him, he never really got into touching distance of Bottas. It was always, his race was for second or third. It was no, even when Sky were building it up and it was, we got the three-way battle here between Hamilton, Bottas and Verstappen for the win, you never looked at it and thought, actually, Verstappen could be the one to nick this. You were looking at it thinking, Bottas or Hamilton's going to win this. So, yes, he had the pace for second, but I think that's as far as he would have got. And that's more down to the fact Bottas had an incredible race, and the Red Bull didn't really show a lot of pace that it had shown it in terms of practice and in qualifying, really.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I would say there was one chance where Max Verstappen had the opportunity to do it. It would have had to have been an incredible lap, almost like a qualifying S-style lap, and that was the undercut on the first pit stop.
Yeah.
Because after that, he never got a sniff near Bottas.
On the hard tyres, the Mercedes was rapid. There was
exactly
even Hamilton was showing the pace on the hard tyres, because at one point he had the fastest lap on his hards.
Exactly.
Which, yes, they were fresh tyres with lower fuel, but there were people on softs and mediums that weren't actually getting close to the time. So
yeah, the Mercedes was a fantastic race package this weekend, and they took full advantage of that. But yeah, if you're being ultra critical of Max, that's it. But I still think Max is probably got the best out of the race that he could have possibly hoped for, with that yellow flag coming in at the end, obviously restricting his ability to overtake Lewis Hamilton. Now we'll probably come to my criticism of Verstappen and Red Bull as a whole from the weekend, and it's after the race in their post-race comments. It'd be interesting to in fact, I'll let your view go on first of them coming out and saying that Ferrari's lack of pace was down to them not cheating anymore.
Well, I said to you after the qualifying reaction what had actually been said in the FIA directive, because Saturday I was out for the whole day and I hadn't seen anything. One, because it was an FIA directive, correct me if I'm wrong, that still means that Red Bull didn't actually challenge. It means they asked for clarification. So that means they're not confident that what they're saying is true. So on that basis, you shouldn't be coming out and saying things like that, because they've got no evidence to support the fact that Ferrari have cheated in any way. Yes, it is interesting that the FIA directive came out and then all of a sudden a Ferrari that has been, let's be honest, the quickest car since the summer break. Yes, in the races it hasn't always shown it, hasn't really been in it at all, and did my view at first was it did seem Hungary-esque, where they were completely off it. But we've said that in races about Red Bull, where, like Singapore, for example, they should have been strong in Singapore.
It wasn't,
and there was no pace there. Did they stop cheating?
Exactly.
So I don't think if I will be honest, if at Brazil, Ferrari are once again Hungary-esque pace when they're not on it, then you can start to question. If it's the same in Abu Dhabi, then the questions can continue. But to have one race where they're off of the pace, considering where they've been at since the summer break, poor form to come out and straight away jump on they must have been cheating.
For me, this is where Max Verstappen needs to... I'm all okay with him going in the press conference and talking about other drivers. That fight and war of words, that's all the mind games. That's absolutely fine. To accuse another team of cheating, and obviously Red Bull themselves saying it stops Ferrari having their legal engine, these type of comments to me are dangerous and they're reckless, because people listen to these, and I've seen it all over social media today in terms of seeing it in comments of kind of other videos on kind of race reviews, where people are saying that's what happens when they stop cheating, and they're taking it almost as gospel, and then it starts a little bit of momentum going, and it's just completely stupid, because they've got no evidence whatsoever. It's one race, and actually you can explain why Ferrari's lack of pace were in this weekend comparatively. Yes, obviously in the data they said that their straight line speed wasn't. Mattia Binotto has come out and given an explanation to this, is they were trying a more downforce package this weekend, and in fact that they were seeing whether they could match their competitors in the corners, which they did, and with Sebastian Vettel in qualifying only finishing 1,000 off pole sitter Valtteri Bottas, and admitting that he took it easy on the first lap, and obviously finishing ahead of the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, ahead of the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. It was just absolutely crazy to kind of think you'd make that judgment just on the straight line speed. Also in the race, Sebastian Vettel clearly had a problem from the start of the race, because obviously
both Ferraris did. Their tyres hadn't warmed up properly on.
But I disagree. The tyres for Vettel may have been the issue, but there was clearly an issue with his car before it started.
Yeah, no.
Because he was on the radio going, something's not right with his car on lap 1. So Vettel's was less to do with tyres and more to do with the fact that you saw his suspension was clearly fragile and then broke.
Well, I think that came from, I said it in the reaction, it was going into turn 12, wasn't it, when Leclerc...
I think it was turn 9.
Oh, no, when Vettel and Leclerc were side by side on the first lap. I'm pretty sure it was turn 12. He went over the curb slightly, up the inside, and you saw his car bounce. So we said how amazing it was at the British Grand Prix that Verstappen and Vettel to some extent had finished the race, but his car had a proper bounce in it, and the suspensions on a Formula 1 car are not meant to take that sort of bump. So that could have done any number of damage to the suspension before having the incident at turn 8, I think it was, where he hit the sausage curve.
It was turn 9.
And then turn 9 where it failed. Yeah. So yes, there was clear issues with the Ferrari already. So yeah, it's madness really to come out and say they were cheating.
And then obviously that was Vettel's one, and then Charles Leclerc was using an old engine that was a lower spec engine, which obviously due to their dominance, it's an old engine anyway, so it's going to have wear and tear, so performance isn't going to be as efficient as possible. And yeah, Charles Leclerc, clearly yes, there was some issue with the tyres, less major for me on the Vettel incident, more that kind of suspension issue. But yeah, it just clearly wasn't their day, and I'm going to defend Ferrari on this one a little bit. This one wasn't their fault necessarily. Mechanical failures can happen, and I don't necessarily blame them for trying things, because they've already secured second in the constructors. Yes, for the driver's personal perspective, third place would be nice either way of them, but they don't receive any extra money for it. So why would they not be trying things? They're already pitched going for a more downforce setup next year. Why would they not be trying to see where they compete in terms of their rivals and gathering data for next year?
Well, for the whole season, everyone's been saying the Mercedes' advantage is the fact that it can hold its speed through both low and high speed corners. Where are Ferrari losing time? The low and the high speed corners. That's where this season was lost. The first half of the season, when no one could really touch the Mercedes in terms of its aero package. So why at a stage when, as you say, there's nothing really more that they can gain from this season other than maybe saying closing the gap on Mercedes so it doesn't look as if it was as dominant as it has been. Go for something like that, try that. We wouldn't be sitting here turning around if Mercedes had decided they were going to go for a low downforce setup to try and look at what they can do in terms of their straight line speed in a race, and that not working. We wouldn't turn around at this moment in time in the season and say, oh well, Mercedes have lost all of their advantage. At that stage, we'd be saying, well, they're trying something new. So it should be the same for Ferrari because their fight is over.
Exactly.
Red Bull's fight is over. There's nothing stopping them.
Yeah, and the FIA are hot on these things, and you've seen if you are cheating, it gets found out. Obviously, Renault wasn't cheating in aspect; it was pushing a rule that wasn't necessarily clarified, and they've been clarified on that since then, and have removed the system.
Well, I said to you yesterday before any news had come out, before the race, anything like that, why, if you were Ferrari, would you start cheating to gain an advantage through your engine once you'd pretty much already lost the championship?
Exactly.
If you're going to do that, like, I don't condone cheating at all, but if you're going to do it, you want to try and do it when you've still got a chance of winning.
Exactly. That's why it makes sense.
You know, if they've done it from the start of the season, and I'm not saying they were cheating, but if they were cheating, you do it from the start of the season. Get as much of an advantage as you can before you get caught and then just deal with everything after. A great start of the season can set you up for anything. Mercedes showed that this year. So, on the whole cheating aspect, I just don't see why they would have started doing it halfway through the season.
It just doesn't make sense, and Red Bull's comments to me don't make sense. But let's get on to more positive things in terms of back to the racing. And for me, in that bracket of drive of the day, I thought Valtteri Bottas had an absolutely superb drive.
And should have got the drive of the day.
Yeah, for me, he was up there in that bracket, but I also think in that bracket come Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault and Sergio Perez in the Racing Point going from pit lane to points. Obviously, without the penalty, he may not have secured the points because Daniel Kvyat probably should have and could have waited to overtake later, but he's still gone pit lane to points, which now gives Racing Point the lead and are 6th in the Constructors, so a massive 1 point for them.
In there, I would also put Lando Norris.
Yeah.
Fantastic start to the race. Yes, he was starting from 8th, wasn't it? He was behind Sainz to start off with, but got up to 5th, and it was a very assured drive from him. Ricciardo's experience, I would say, was always going to win out in that battle, especially considering the fact that Ricciardo's got a point to prove in Austin. But you can't fault him on his drive. There wasn't. I can't think of a mistake.
Lando was quick all weekend. I mean, obviously he came 3rd quickest in FP3 and he topped the times in Q1, which was mightily impressive and a great lap there. Obviously, you don't get pole for getting a quick lap in Q1, but you know, for McLaren to do that, they have had a great package this year. Hopefully they can carry this progress that they've made going into 2020, and you know, and a large part of that has been Sainz and Norris.
Yeah, and one thing I'd put out there, yes, Vettel clearly had a problem on the first lap with his car, but had that overtake that Lando Norris made on him been made by Max Verstappen or a Daniel Ricciardo, someone with more experience, people would have been saying about that for a potential overtake of the day. So yes, it was an opportunistic move, but
Aren't all overtakes?
Well, but executed extremely well.
But yeah, Daniel Ricciardo, fantastic drive. Qualified really well for Renault on the Saturday, getting P9, and then obviously finishing in P6 in the race. Fantastic race pace, beating the McLarens. Fantastic achievement. And again, for me, I'm unfortunately dispelling the myth that Nico Hülkenberg is a talent lost to a big team.
Yes, true. Still think he'll be a loss for F1.
I think as a character, and I like Nico Hülkenberg, I've got to make the thing, and he's been great having in F1 for 10 years, but if we're looking at driver ability and people saying getting him into a top team, he could do a job, but he's certainly
it would have
he's certainly not even on a level of what Valtteri Bottas is now doing, because I think he's greatly improved, and Daniel Ricciardo in a new team going down a level from a top team, so a hard thing to adjust. I think it's harder to adjust going from a slow car. It's harder to adjust going into a fast car into a slow car than it is going into a slow car into a fast car.
He's moved to a big team, needed to come 3, maybe 4 seasons ago. Unfortunately for him, he is now at the stage where it is the tail end of his career, and if it was me looking as a team principal, I would be considering bringing a youngster in, because you can see the benefits of the likes of Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, George Russell coming into a team young. It shows. So that's the unfortunate thing for Hülkenberg. Still a very talented driver, and
I think he'll have success in other series.
Yeah, and if he was given an F1 seat, I don't think anyone would turn around and say he's taken that seat from someone more deserving. I just think now it's at a stage where, unfortunately...
With Giovinazzi being confirmed, so Giovinazzi has been confirmed for the Alpha. He already ruled himself out the Williams seat, so that for me means...
Well, no, that means he's not in F...
Yeah, exactly.
Because Helmut Marko's come out and said already that...
It would be...
It's between
Kvyat,
Gasly and Albon as to who is where within the team. So that's pretty much confirmed the Red Bull Toro Rosso seats. So it's now Hülkenberg is unfortunately going to be out of F1 next season.
Yeah, so thank you for the memories, Hülkenberg, and I wish you all the success. We'll probably do something near the end of the season, but I wish you all the success in other series. But unfortunately for Nico, he wasn't able to grasp the opportunities in his career, and you've seen from the likes of Daniel Kvyat and Pierre Gasly, if you don't grasp those opportunities when they're presented,
they don't last long in Formula 1.
Exactly, it's a ruthless sport, and you have to take it. There is kind of no second chances for the nice guy of that team, which Nico Hülkenberg is a nice guy. Just probably Alpha, fantastic drive from Kimi, probably getting to P11, although probably was P12. And with retirements and penalties...
Well, to be fair, his first lap was amazing.
Yeah.
What was it? It was 18th?
Yeah, it was 18th
up to 14th or 13th.
He made up 6 places, so I think it was 12th.
Up to 12th even then for the first lap. Yeah, like...
And then had a very strong race from there. But obviously he won there last year. The US Grand Prix is a track that he likes. You expect him to do well. But that was probably the closest Alpha we're going to get to any sort of points in these last 3 races. But yeah, Alpha, Haas, Williams, their seasons are over. So probably a quick note on Magnussen's probably great failure.
I was going to say, Gunther Stein has come out and said that Haas got everything they could from qualifying, which, considering where they were in the constructors last year, to say that 12th and 15th, wasn't it, is the best you can get from qualifying is quite unfortunate. And then in terms of race pace, they never seem to be there. Grosjean dropped quite quickly, didn't he, towards the back of the pack, and then Magnussen very unfortunate as it was the brake failure, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, Haas, they could have done with both cars finishing in their home Grand Prix, especially after last year, but it sums up their season really. We've been saying it for a while, they cannot wait for 2019 to be over and to hopefully turn things around in 2020. And obviously they've spoken positively about 2020, but like Williams, when you've had such bad years, the only thing you can do is talk up your chances for the following season. Last point to cover on the race probably is the Daniel Kvyat incident at the end with Sergio Perez. So yes, so Ashton hasn't seen it, so my point of view is Daniel Kvyat again has come out and slammed the stewards for the decision, and I'm really surprised no one has picked him up on this, because Mexico he was out of order because it was his fault for the Hulkenberg crash, and again he was out of order. If you guys go and check out Sergio Perez's on board, you can see that he's gone wide within the track limits still, but really on the verge of them, and then suddenly you just see this Toro Rosso come in and smash his front wing, and basically he's used Sergio Perez as a brake to make the corner. He carried far too much pace into the corner and overshot it. For me, I think I mentioned it maybe on Twitter, Daniel Kvyat has as Hulkenberg's been shown up by Ricciardo, Gasly has shown up Kvyat in terms of Kvyat's frustrated that you can tell from the first race, I think it was Spa, that he said, I'm not sure why people are bigging up Albon's performance. You know, he spent a large part of the race behind me and I finished 7th or something like that. Frustrated being overlooked there, frustrated by how well Albon's been doing, frustrated by how well Pierre Gasly's coming in done, and overall, obviously Kvyat's been unlucky at times, but then you look at Singapore, was too bold and obviously took Kimi out of the race there. Then obviously Hulkenberg last week, who received a penalty, and then this week with Sergio Perez, he's shown a driver who's struggling to control his emotions, and yeah, his stock was very high at the halfway break, but I think this half of the season hasn't done any favours for Daniel Kvyat.
No, I'd agree on that, and I think his downturn almost has been with an upturn for Albon, which is, I know that in the summer break we were split, but I think you're now agreeing on my side.
Albon completely deserves the seat, yeah.
So it's unfortunate for him for that to have happened, but yeah, it's not a good run of events, is it? When you think of how much people were going on about mistakes Vettel was making, and that was 1 in 3. That's an unfortunate stat to have, 1 in 3, which he has corrected now. Well, I say corrected, he's been a little bit luckier as well with it. But now Kvyat, it's 2 in 2 and 3 in 4. So that's an awful stat to have. And it's definitely the return of the torpedo.
It definitely is, unfortunately for him. So probably rounding off this review, we'll just talk about Mercedes, because how can you not, in a season where they have dominated again, and dominated having the best race car, but it has been closer than they've made it look, I think. At times, Max Verstappen and Red Bull have pushed them. Ferrari have obviously thrown away a load of points and a load of opportunities. For me, we'll focus on Valtteri Bottas first, and you mentioned the stat yesterday that I didn't realise, and so there it's his 4th win of the season, which is the most he's ever secured in a season ever.
It's also his highest points return.
It's also his highest points return, but it is also the largest gap that Lewis Hamilton has ever had between a teammate in a season.
I didn't know that one.
There you go. But that's a little bit unfair on Valtteri, because I think he has done very well. Do I think he has a chance of beating Hamilton? He's improving in the car. He's certainly progressing. For me, where he lost it this year was Hockenheim, where obviously Lewis Hamilton spun out, was looking he was going to finish outside the points, bar that Alfa Romeo spin, and Bottas had a real opportunity to win, if not come second and really maximise the points he could get over Hamilton, and he threw it away there. And it was just obviously then had a poor result in Hungary the race after, didn't he, where Lewis won, and that's probably where he lost a real title challenge this year. But overall, Valtteri Bottas, I've been really impressed. He's been far superior to the Bottas that we've seen in 2018. He's been far more competitive racing, and in the second half of the season he's been a very good driver. I think he's matched Hamilton 2 wins. They both got 2 wins in the second half of the season, and he's been very consistent getting on the podium or in the high points finishing positions.
I agree, he's had a fantastic season. I don't agree with the fact that he's got the opportunity to beat Hamilton at all. I think the mental side of things now, it's last season for him was awful.
I don't necessarily think he had an opportunity, but if he is going to gain an opportunity, he is showing that he's improving. So the gap,
no doubt he is improving, and the gap will come down over a full season.
I still think Lewis is probably got the consistency and effect to do it.
I think Lewis is going to not only beat him, but beat him comfortably, because yes, you can understand the disappointment in not winning the championship, but even in interviews, the last, I would say, definitely Mexico and Austin, even some extent Japan after winning, you could tell that his belief in the opportunity of him actually getting anywhere near to Hamilton had gone. And in some of the interviews he's come across as the Valtteri of last year. So I think Hamilton's now got that mental block over Bottas.
Yes.
But can't take away from him, yesterday was a fantastic drive. He's had a fantastic season, which if he can improve on it next year would be brilliant to see, and would mean that we're having a more competitive season. It's just when you've got a teammate like Lewis Hamilton that is an unrelenting winning machine. Like yesterday, he had no reason. Well, actually, he shouldn't have had the right to have been considering a win from where he was on the grid, and considering the pace that Bottas had shown. Yet, his mindset, I want to win this race.
And he even fought him to the end, because obviously they were fighting, pushed Bottas wide. He got him the next lap on the DRS because he just had the spear pace. But yeah, Hamilton is showing that relentless desire to win, and I think probably we'll finish off this review in terms of giving it a tribute to Lewis Hamilton being the second ever driver to ever get 6 Drivers' World Championships. Your thoughts on the championship win, Ash?
Where do you start with it? He had his best start to a season. Second half of the season, car wasn't the fastest car. I still stand by the fact that the Mercedes is the fastest race car, but out and out pace, it wasn't there. Had to deal with challenges from, I would say, 4 drivers in the second half of the season for race wins, but consistently finished on the podium. He has driven an almost perfect season. I think that's the best way you can put it. He's maximised points at pretty much every single race. The only 2 where you can look at and say, actually, you didn't do as well as you probably should have, is Germany, which I'm going to defend him slightly and say team decision, putting him onto the softs was wrong. And then Austria, where the Mercedes hasn't been strong recently, and Bottas got onto the podium, but neither car really seemed to be able to challenge for the win there. So when you're looking at a 21 race season, admittedly we've still got 2 races to go, but you're looking at it and saying there's been 2 races where you haven't got pretty much the most you could have out of a race, you know you're doing something right.
Yeah, massively agree. And Lewis Hamilton, 6-time world champion, it's an incredible feat. Yes, obviously he's been in the best cars for pretty much all of his career, bar the kind of later part of his McLaren career, and obviously the first season in the Mercedes. But he's just an incredible driver, an incredibly consistent, ruthless winner. And every season he turns up and he does what he needs to do to win a championship. And he still has to drive that car and win the championship. You've seen Valtteri Bottas is in the Mercedes. He was highly regarded as a driver before his first season with Mercedes. And now people don't really rate Bottas that highly because of how convincingly Hamilton has beaten him. And he's done it with every single teammate, and has only been beaten by a teammate twice in a season in his entire career. We'll probably do we're going to be doing a video that will come out as part of a 2-part Mercedes series, with the F1 debate show collaborating over the weekend, so that'll be good for you guys to enjoy. But Lewis Hamilton, fantastic season, you covered it well from there. Probably one of his best seasons ever in terms of how relentlessly consistent he was in point scoring. Incredible by Lewis Hamilton, incredible achievement, incredible champion. And yeah, that probably rounds up the video, probably quite a good way to end it. So guys, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up.
Make sure to press the subscribe button, because we are very pleased to have more than 100 subscribers. Yes, it's not a big number to get to, but considering only starting in Silverstone, very impressed to be there, and we want to thank everyone for that. So make sure you are pressing that subscribe button so we can continue to grow this channel, because we're having fun doing it. And also press the bell icon and get notifications when our videos are going live, so that you can see them straight away.
And also to celebrate that 100 subscriber things, we have a silly video coming out tomorrow in terms of just a little celebration, in terms of, obviously we weren't going to go over the top, because yeah, like we said, it's a nice achievement for us, but we do understand in the grand scheme of things 100 isn't a huge amount, but it's probably more than we both were expecting to get by the end of the season, and there's 2 races to go. So yeah, it was great for us. So guys, comment down below what your thoughts of the race were, what your thoughts on Bottas's win, Lewis Hamilton's World Championship win, that Kvyat incident, and obviously anything else from the race that you'd like to talk about, because we always love getting involved in the comments with you guys and chatting from there. But for now, you F1 fans, keep racing!